I'd like to call up on the stage Jill Robb, who's going to wow us. Welcome, Jill. I've got your clicker, you've got your bottle of water, which is absolutely necessary.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Jill, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about where you're from and also what you're going to speak about today.
Sure. Jill Robb, as Stuart's kindly introduced me, and I'm from an agency called Origin Digital. I'm one of 3 partners of the agency, and we work primarily across Europe. We're actually based in Ireland, so it's not an Australian accent, it's an Irish one. And sometimes, because I'm Irish, I do speak a little bit fast, so wave at me if I start speaking too quickly.
Excellent. Thank you, Jill. There's your clicker, just to wave it, of course. Yeah. And stage is yours. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. And just to point out, my ears are the size of a 6-year-old child's, hence the reason why I can't have the same mic today, so I'm going for the bigger one. So today I'm going to cover the digital landscape, and I am talking primarily about e-commerce, but actually reflecting on Nadir. Could I have a show of hands as to how many people in the room actually have an e-commerce website that they manage? Okay, so we are in the minority when it comes to e-commerce websites. However, reflecting what Nadir said, it's my belief that if you have a website, you're trying to sell something to somebody, which is really key in terms of how you manage it. Next slide, please. Okay, so who am I? I made a bit of a stir last year when I said that I hated Google, and to a large degree I still do. It's because Google makes our lives very difficult as digital marketers. They change things all of the time. It's very much a movable feast, so I am pretty much a Google hater. I do consider myself a recovering retailer. So I actually used to manage, I can see some laughs about that, you understand what I'm saying. I used to manage shops for a living, and that was my previous career before I got into the digital marketing and e-commerce side, and that was just under 15 years ago. So in the digital space, I suppose I would be considered a bit of a granny, really. Continuous learner and tech addict, so quite a few people have noticed the Apple Watch. It is very addictive. I don't know if I'm so much just addicted to tech or just an addictive personality, not sure. But I have quite a lot of experience in this sector. Next slide, please. Okay, so what have been the big challenges in 2015? Well, there have been quite a lot. So, because I work with so many in the e-commerce retail space, there's been sort of 3 main themes that have been coming out of the space in terms of the complaints and the issues that people have been having. Technology issues, most definitely one of them, and I think that kind of leads itself into the integration and cross-channel marketing and what we call the single customer view. Could I have a show of hands to see how many people have actually heard of this terminology, single customer view? Okay. So I will explain it in a little bit more depth later on. Next slide, please. So change, it happens. It happens at a very, very fast pace. But one other thing that happens, next slide, please, is technology. It happens to us every single day, and it has a big impact in terms of how we market. It helps us pull things together, but sometimes it also helps us pull things apart, and that's key to technology, is understanding how you use it and the benefits that it will provide you with. So in terms of e-commerce, and again, just to step away from e-commerce because I want this to be applicable to everybody in the room, when it comes to digital marketing, there are actually 3 types of people. So there are those keeping up with their customers, there are those pushing to catch up, and there are those that are being left behind. Would anybody in the room like to admit that they're feeling a bit left behind? Okay, a few brave people. Okay. You're not alone there. Okay, so in terms of systems integration, that's been one of the big issues in 2015. And the reason why it's one of the big issues in 2015 is because, as we've heard today, customers and people are now multi-channel. Quite often you will see people with a laptop on their knee, their mobile phone in their hand while they're watching television. And this is just normal. This is normal in people's homes. So now as marketers, we have to be aware of this. As e-commerce retailers, e-commerce happens 24/7 every single day. This doesn't happen 9 to 5. So you need to be able to respond with correct information 24/7. You need to respond with customer service 24/7. We now have social media that happens 24/7, so you need to be on this. We also have an issue with cross-channel CRM, or customer relationship management. What Stuart was saying earlier is very true. It does give us a lot of return in investment, but you need to have it, and that's sometimes where those technology issues come into play. How do you get a CRM that operates across all of these channels? One that takes the data from people on Twitter, those influencers, one that can match up people that are accessing your website via their mobile phone, but also via their website. Because then if you get that data, you can market to them via the channels that they themselves are actually using. And then when we think about delivery, again, technologically, delivery is a big, big issue when we're talking about e-commerce. And there's been a lot of very interesting advancements in delivery across the UK and Europe recently, with a lot of e-commerce retailers actually liaising with offline stores that have a big brand and big influence in the high street, and using them for pickup points for their goods that they're delivering. So there's been a lot of change in that arena in 2015. So the big question is then, do you deliver the goods? So 46% of customers actually abandon their shopping carts due to shipping concerns. So will I get my product in time? Will it be delivered to the correct address? And so on. 17% abandoned because of security reasons. And again, quite interesting what MBK were talking about earlier on, because those security issues are real for people, and these great solutions can help prevent the 17% abandoning. 80% of people want regular shipping updates. So if they place an order on your website, they want to know when it's going to be delivered, and they want to be kept informed at all times. So if they place their order at midnight, they want those regular updates by the following day. It's not good enough now just to leave that. That has to happen for them. This figure is actually based on the UK market, but it's similar globally. So 47% of audiences have had problems on websites when they're attempting to purchase. Look at the next figure. 71% indicated that they would not come back if they had a problem. That's a big, big stat, and it just indicates how important it is for us to get things right in e-commerce as quickly as we can to make sure that our audience stays behind and stays with us. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do we get it right? How do we get this consistency? So we need consistent content, and we need a consistent experience across all of these channels. So I was having a look at some Kuwaiti apps and some shop apps recently, and I struggled to find information. I struggled to understand how you would get the delivery. I struggled to understand timescales of delivery. I struggled to understand payment details, and that was just me seeking information via a mobile phone and an app. If I was a real customer, how would that impact? We need great customer service information there as well. What if I need to return? Where is that information if you are on an app, for example, or on a website? So it's important we understand that. Point 5 is something that's very often missed. Now, actually, e-commerce retailers are better at doing this than maybe normal websites, but I would highly recommend that if you have a standard website and you are running some marketing campaigns, that you look at setting up very, very specific landing pages to do your marketing. This is because, from a conversion rate optimization perspective, we know that people will convert more if they see your offline campaign creative and they land on the page that you're driving them to, and they again see exactly the same creative. It reinforces that they're in the right place, and it reinforces that they found what they're after, so you will get a higher conversion rate. System-generated emails. So I mentioned they're very, very important when it comes to e-commerce. It's important that customers are kept up to date, that it's confirmed that they have actually purchased on your website. Even if they've signed up for a newsletter, for example, if that's actually your goal on your website, it's important that you confirm that they have registered correctly. So those system-generated emails quite often are left behind or forgotten about. They're normally just plain text and whatever your system standard normally is. But you will find that actually people will engage way more if you try and customize those for your brand and make sure that you have some very strong reasons as to why they should engage with you in the future. Keep your customers informed at all times. Keep your customers informed was the last point. But in terms of just rounding up in terms of the e-commerce essentials here, ensure your value propositions are clear. So a value proposition, as was mentioned earlier on, we do have a very short attention span. Value propositions really should come across within 7 seconds. A value proposition cannot be 5 lines long. It's snappy, it's short, it's a call to action, it gets the message across very, very quickly. You only have 7 to 8 seconds to engage in that value proposition. Make your products look appealing. I had a very interesting question earlier on, and it was, how can you do online retail if it's so different from offline? In actual fact, it's not really that different to a large degree. In the shop, we still have to dress our mannequins, we still have to dress a shop window. On a website, you have to dress your homepage, you have to dress your site. You need to make your products look appealing. A study from an international retailer actually showed that videoing a catwalk model walking up and down in the clothes actually increased and drove about 14% more sales than just standard pictures of that product. So making those products and merchandising is the right way to go. Okay, clear customer journeys. So in terms of how people use your website, can they get through your website quickly? Again, another usability study has proven that if it takes more than 4 clicks for somebody to purchase a product, it's too many. Make sure that those customer journeys are valid and they're short. Great customer service, marketing communication then. So making sure that your marketing communication is relevant. Well, how do we do this if we have lots of different customers? How do we do this if we have lots of different customers using different channels? And actually, our CRM is a big and an important key part of this to make sure that we are communicating with people where they want to be communicated on. Okay, so in terms of e-commerce essentials, they're not so different from standard digital marketing essentials either. You must make sure that irrespective of your website, whether it's e-commerce or not, that you're getting the message across and that it's timely, that you're actually communicating on channels where your customers are. And to do that, we need the CRM, you need the technology, and sometimes that's the difficult bit. How do you integrate that, especially if you're a business that is traditionally offline? How do you get these learnings and how do you make that happen when it comes to online? Okay, so this is the big challenge, and I think it's a 2015 challenge, but it's certainly something that I think is going to continue for quite some time, potentially into 2017. We know that we have very disconnected digital marketing platforms. So Twitter is not the same as a blog, for example, as not the same as LinkedIn. They all have different audiences. And actually the data in each is very disconnected and it's almost in silos. So how do you make that and how do you give that meaning? This is something that is going to give us a very sort of unintegrated approach to things, and we need to streamline that and make sure that we are actually marketing to people in those channels. Next slide, please. So really what we want to get to, and this has been happening quite a lot, is the omni-channel side of things in all of our marketing and all of our e-commerce systems. So this is what the reality is. We actually need to catch up with our customers. So as businesses, we tend to think in a very sort of one-dimensional view. We use 1 or 2 platforms and we tend to use them all independently because a lot of times they're not joined up, but our customers don't think like that. Our customers use multiple channels and they expect the same level of communication from us across all of those channels. It does not matter to them that they have bought something from your website and they want to return it into your store. As far as they're concerned, that's good customer service to allow them to do so. So we need this to become a reality. So this remains a big issue in 2015. So a single customer view, you had mentioned that earlier on, and I promised to go into a little bit more detail about that. A single customer view is basically technology that allows us to track our consumers based on a single piece of data. So for example, each of us are likely to have signed up for Facebook using the email address that we use a lot for purchases. If we've used that single piece of data for both Facebook and for purchasing online, then retailers can actually use that single piece of data to track us around and understand how we're using the 2 platforms. So a single customer view is massively important to us. So the expectations of a single customer view, from a business perspective, the expectations are very, very different than that of a consumer. From a business expectation, we expect to be able to understand customer interactions across all channels and across all platforms. We expect to have, therefore, an increased share of wallet. So if you look back, even 10 years ago, Macy's in the United States were already gathering and garnering this data. What they were doing was they were using their loyalty card to get this data, and they understood very, very quickly that people who shopped with them in store via the kiosks that were in store, and shopped with them online spent 3 times as much. So we therefore have an expectation that we will get more of that share of wallet. We also have an expectation that the lifetime value of that customer will extend, because we are making it easier for them to engage with us. And therefore, there would be an increased return on investment in marketing. But from a customer's perspective, they expect personalized content. They do not expect emails to come out to them that are just blanket emails to anybody and aren't personalized. They expect information when and where they want it. They expect that consistent message, and they expect the joined-up customer service. Next slide, please. Okay. So how do we get a customer view? So I've got some tips here for you, 7 steps to getting that single customer view. I'm not going to say it's easy, it sure isn't, and you will need the technology, but you need to ensure that you have data and that data is validated in real time. So by that, what I mean is that when somebody actually puts their email address in, that you have forms in your website that validate that it's a proper email address. You need to link those sort of very separate identities. And again, that's down to that single piece of data, which is normally their email address. You need to cleanse your data, get rid of duplicates, because people do get very annoyed if they end up getting 3 and 4 emails via different lists that you may have. So it's hugely important. And make sure that you then enhance your data with a full understanding of the channels that they're using and how they're engaging with you. Profile your best customers. So back into the data analytics, understand who your best customers are, and then go out and look for them. And if your best customer just happens to be an individual who uses your website, reads your blog, is on LinkedIn and follows you on Instagram, and you then notice that you've got a whole bank of other customers that actually just don't do the Instagram piece, try and recruit them to Instagram because they already have the behavior set of a great customer. So that's how you'll identify more of those customers that are your best ones. And finally, get the right technology. So again, you can't really do this by having a digital marketing team that use all of these channels. You need that piece of technology that joins them all up. Okay, and with this then what will happen is you will get a lot of those expectations that you want. You will get a customer that is of a much higher value to you. You will get that communication, and you will get much more engagement with your consumer as well, right the way across all of your channels. And this is what happens, in terms of that lifetime model. One of the strange things that happens here, though, is better internal communications for your business. Because what we find is that the digital marketing team quite often, there might be somebody in charge of social media, somebody in charge of email, and so on. When they all have this data, things internally pull together as well. So just some more stats for you. 64% of consumers said that they received just blatantly blanket emails that were completely irrelevant to them. Completely irrelevant. And 59% said that they were irritated at doing so. I know I'm one. I get really, really annoyed if I get stuff about men's clothing. After receiving that irrelevant information, 37% say they will actually punish brands for getting that irrelevant information. So in other words, I don't like you anymore because you're not talking to me. I don't like you anymore because you haven't taken the trouble to find out about me and about what I like. So therefore, I'm going to stop following you, or I'm going to stop engaging from you. So those are very, very important stats to bear in mind. Okay, so very quickly, some 3 emerging trends in the sector for 2016. Mobile, so it's a very heavy theme for today. And I'm not going to lie, you'll probably be bored by the end of the session in terms of mobiles. But 14% of consumers would prefer to pay via mobile versus credit card. I was actually chatting to somebody earlier on, and what I found was that when I took delivery of my Apple Watch, I was able to make a purchase on Amazon using my watch and speaking to it to tell it that I wanted to buy rechargeable batteries in 24 seconds. That was all it took. And that's because I have one click set up on my phone and it connected through. So I know that I'm part of this group here. I want to do this, and I want to research the products online that I want to purchase. So Millennials is the next big thing, and it was quite interesting actually to hear one of the speakers earlier on saying that 60% of the Kuwaiti market fall into this sort of millennial bracket. It's a key emerging trend for 2016, and these are the guys that have huge spending power too. And again, one of the things that feeds into this is the mobile side. They expect everything to be mobile, absolutely everything to be mobile. Half of all retail spending from these guys are going to be on mobile devices. Now that includes the research piece as well, so again, hugely important. And some of these stats at the bottom, 89% would prefer a store that has advanced mobile capabilities. So there is a potential to just ignore you if you don't. We already know that people like Google are starting to ignore us if our websites aren't mobile enabled on mobile search results. So this is the way it's going for this audience as well. Beacons, has anybody employed the beacon technology? No? Chatting about it? Okay, good. So we've recently started doing quite a bit as a company using beacons. Fantastic technology, especially when it comes to this data. We can use beacons to track consumers as they walk around a shop floor and understand which products they're buying most as opposed to which products they're deliberating on the most whilst they're in store. Fantastic amount of information, and we can use them to push through lots of information when they're in store. Location data, personalization, and analytics. So the personalization piece, again, quite interesting, because based on the location they're at, I can send through different things. We've started developing certain technology that allows our customers just to tap elements on shelves, and it pushes down information about those individual products. Really, really useful if you have quite high-value items. So again, these stats about beacons just speak for themselves. Beacons really help us with shopper interactions. A lot of people are spending money on apps. A lot of the uptake of apps at first is very, very high, and then the engagement drops off. When we start to introduce beacon technology so that people are actually getting usage of those apps every time they go into stores, that actually increases again, so we get much longer engagement with our consumer base, and that's really unheard of. So just a bit of a roundup. You know, we are in a world where the digital world is changing at the fastest pace that it has ever done before, and we have to really keep up with it. Consumers really expect, you know, accurate information, customer service, and the ability to receive marketing across all of those channels, irrespective of what platform they're communicating with you on. They want to receive it in a timely manner. Data-driven decision-making is absolutely key to all e-commerce marketing and digital marketing for that matter, absolutely key. So we are in a really fast-paced world, and those that are winning at digital, absolutely winning, keep up with their customers. They don't follow behind. Thank you.